Today we're ranking every single launch map in Treyarch Zombies, as well as the non-Treyarch Zombies games from worst to best. Keep in mind guys, these are just my own personal opinions. However, what I feel makes a very good launch map are maps that perfectly prepare you for the game that you're about to play. You know, you play the launch map, you're fully given experience towards what the DLC maps might be like. Good launch maps also introduce you to the game's mechanics, have a lot of good content, and are just very fun maps to replay. With that being said though guys, feel free to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy more of these videos. Hit me up on my Twitch where we do zombie streams, all that good stuff. Join the Discord server down below, and let's get into the number 18 spot. Jesus, there's 18 launch maps. Number 18, Bus Depot Survival. Is anyone really gonna argue this? I mean, it's just knocked without the nostalgia. There's really nothing to this map. It has bland atmosphere, terrible, colors, really bad high rounds, no Easter egg. It's just a boring, uninspired, mess of a map. I think Jimmy Zielinski just went for quantity over quality for Black Ops 2's launch, and it really does show. Number 17, Farm Survival. It suffers from exactly the same problems as Bus Depot, however it has the 4 original perks, with Double Tap 2.0 instead, and a slightly more interesting map layout, and a semi-decent training space. It has two-story buildings, really pushing the boundaries, I know. But unfortunately, Farm, whilst it has these good aspects, it unfortunately has even worse colours and atmosphere than Bus Depot. You can't see your hand in front of your fucking face on this map. The colours are awful, it's not beautiful in the slightest, and really it's just a shit Verrucht. Number 16, Duranfang. I cannot even believe it's making it this high up the list. But when you take away, what a disaster the Vanguard launch was, it was mainly due to how stable the game was, or wasn't I should say, as well as how lackluster the mechanics were. Take that out of the equation, Duranfang is not the worst map of all time. However, what really brings it down is it's just a shit version of Outbreak. Obviously if you ported it over onto Cold War, it would be somewhat enjoyable. It would still be the worst map on that game, I'm not defending it. However, if you take away all of the issues with Vanguard's launch, Duranfang isn't the worst map, but it's still terrible. Number 15, Transit, or Green Run. Realistically, this map has everything that a good zombies map needs, such as innovation, Easter egg, high rounds, etc. But unfortunately, everything Transit has is awful. The Victor's crew were not entertaining at all, and the stark opposite, in fact, they were annoying as fuck. The jet gun, whilst on paper the best wonder weapon, in practice is one of the worst due to how slow it recharges, as well as how quickly it overheats. Whilst it has 2 Easter eggs, technically, the Maxis and Richtofen side, both of them are absolute cancer to complete. They're just not fun in the slightest. Pack-a-Punch, not fun. The bus is one of the worst transportation methods. Transit really does have nothing going for it. The perk it introduced, Tombstone, one of the worst perks of all time. Transit, consistently bad across all aspects, really. I've got to give them props for that. Number 14, Voyage of Despair. Realistically, the issues I have with this map go beyond the Titanic atmosphere, because the map layout doesn't bother me too much when you look at it from the context that you're literally on the Titanic, one of the most claustrophobic environments a zombies map has ever had. The issue that I have really is just everything else. The boss enemies were just too overwhelming, especially when you have 9, which was far more open and a stark contrast. The wonder weapons on Voyage were not good at all. The Krakens, I appreciate a 4 elemental wonder weapon set at launch, but unfortunately D-Machine did this way better. The Krakens were just uninspired, not very fun. The ice one's probably the best, but aside from that, really didn't have much good. The atmosphere was also not very special. It was just bleak, cold, dead. I get that's, very accurate for the Titanic, what it would have been like, but it just doesn't feel much of anything. You also have the Eye of Odin boss fight, which granted is fantastic, but you have a poor Easter egg preceding it, so realistically this map didn't have that much to work with. Not to mention it was later retconned, where we kind of well, not retconned, but it was presumed that Voyage would lead into 9, when in reality DLC 1 Dead of the Night was a prequel to Voyage, so it was even worse for setting you up for the Chaos storyline, since DLC 1 came out and was a prequel which set you up for Voyage, which isn't a good thing for a launch map in my opinion. It just confuses you. Number 13, Blood of the Dead. This map suffers from similar issues to Voyage of Despair, you know, the claustrophobic atmosphere. However, given the fact that it was a one-to-one recreation or reimagine of Mob of the Dead, I can let that one slide. And unlike Voyage, Blood of the Dead was chronologically the first map in, you know, the Black Ops 4 EVA storyline, so there was no issues with the story later on down the line, and at the very least the Magma Gap was quite an interesting upgrade over the Vitriolic Withering, and I didn't mind some aspects of the map, especially the high rounds. The issues with this map really come from the fact that it's just too claustrophobic, it's too chaotic, it's not fun, really, especially when you have super sprinters spawning in. I know it's not that big of an issue, but at times it does feel as though the game is trying to fuck you over, especially with the catwalk or the gauntlet. You know, you have to sprint from one end of the map to the other whilst the zombies are just pouring in, and it's just not fun. The Easter egg is also abysmal on this map. I don't like it at all. I think that Mob of the Dead, you know, even though it had a pretty shit Easter egg as far as, you know, the good maps by comparison, Blood's Easter egg was just an abomination and really did drag the map down. As far as a remaster for Mob of the Dead, this just ain't it. Number 12, Nocturne Totem. The map that started it all really was a pretty interesting launch map, where this map has the least amount of content out of any map on this list aside from Bus Depot. However, one thing that aged really well about this map was just the atmosphere. It is unsettling, creepy, you know, it really does set the stage for the future of the game mode that you will, you know, play. And I don't think many maps really kept the atmosphere that Nocturne Totem introduced. However, from a modern perspective, and in retrospect, this map just doesn't play well in the slightest. It's incredibly glitchy. The lack of content is very much apparent, especially when Verrückt, the immediate sequel, if you like, or successor, has a shit ton of added content. I understand it was the first map ever, but as a launch map, there are better alternatives. It just hasn't aged all that well. Number 11, Kino de Toten Black Ops 1. Really, this is as good as it gets. It was originally made for World at War, but it was ported over into Okay, but joking aside, Kino de Toten is a pretty decent introduction to zombies. You know, it's basically just Der Riese, but as a launch map. What could be better? Well, you know, 10 other maps apparently, because it ain't number 1. Sorry, Chaotic Silencer. Really, all Kino introduced was the Thunder Gun, and, you know, the Nova Crawlers were an interesting enemy to shake up, you know, the design of the game. But ultimately, this map was still just a claustrophobic experience. I understand it's possibly the most popular map of all time, and possibly the most casual map of all time, and as a launch map it works really well. However, there are better alternatives. Number 10, 5 from Black Ops 1. For me, this map was just an upgrade over Kino, in the sense that it was actually unique and a very interesting survival map for Black Ops 1 to have, especially since at the time you needed to put in a cheat code in order to actually get the map. But playing as, you know, JFK in the Pentagon, using the Winter's Howl, which granted is a dogshit weapon, but it was new and unique, you know, running away from the Pentagon thief, you know, going down into the scientific labs on the, you know, the basement area, being on the floor, you know, the elevators. There's tons of different strategies on this map, and the fact that it has an electric trap, so it's actually not the worst launch map ever for high rounds. But obviously 5 is a bit too difficult to be any higher on this list. You know, as a launch map, it's definitely more of a turn-off. You know, some people prefer Kino over 5, that's absolutely fine. But I think 5 is objectively better because it's more exciting and it offered more into zombies. Number 9, Town Survival Black Ops 2. It stands as a testament as to how good this map was, that even with some of the best maps ever released on the game, such as Origins and Mob of the Dead, Town Survival was still the most popular map, and rightfully so, as this map just has a very interesting, yet somewhat basic, uncomplicated, pretty straightforward map layout that was very fun. You know, it had 6 perks on the map, it had Pack-a-Punch, had decent areas to train and camp. What more could you really ask for? You know, this map, in my opinion at least, saved Black Ops 2 Zombies and carried it until Mob of the Dead came out. And I had a lot of fun on this map and will always, you know, have that nostalgic feel towards the map. However, being objective, this is very, very basic. You know, there's no Easter egg, there's no traps and no good wonder weapons, so high rounds are quite difficult. The map also suffers from the rest of the Green Run maps where it just looks shit. You know, like the colours and fog really bring this map down, and obviously there's no memorable characters either to latch onto and relate to. Number 8. Outbreak from Exo Zombies. I actually really enjoy this map. It's just another one of those facility maps. You know, it's a very familiar concept, which COD Zombies is obviously, it's not new territory by any stretch. However, this map still was pretty fun. You know, obviously the Exo Zombies movement, both vertical and horizontal movement, the map obviously had to be open quite a lot more, and you really did have a lot of movement opportunities with this map. You know, with the Exo suit, you could jump very, very high up and reach areas that you wouldn't have been able to reach in other maps. You obviously had everything new with Exo Zombies, and this map also has a pretty decent wonder weapon, the Self-Free Cauterizer, decent traps, and it also has, you know, an Easter egg. Granted, it's nothing special, but it still has one. The main issue with this map though is just the Exo Zombie systems, but I've said, you know, I'm not including that in the ranking. What I am including, however, is the enemy spam. You know, these enemies are not fun to deal with in the slightest. Least of it all, the EMZs. The EMZs just disable your exosuit and take away this incredibly fun mechanic from the player for a couple of seconds, but those couple of seconds could really mean the difference between life and death, and it really does bring that map down for me. Number 7. Classified from Black Ops 4. In my opinion, a no-nonsense improvement over 5. No disrespect to the President's crew from 5, however, the Ultimus crew will always be one of my favourites. Whilst their dialogue isn't the best in this map or in this game, it's still serviceable and does the job. The Winter's Howl got a noticeable buff, and it still wasn't the best wonder weapon in Zombies, but it became much better. The teleporter system was fixed, where the teleportation was no longer random. It took a bit of the chaotic nature out of, you know, the map, but made it a lot more reliable. It introduced the shield, you know, made the Pack-a-Punch go to Area 51 from Moon rather than the President's office, which was a bit of a controversial change, but a welcome one nonetheless. It still suffers from the Black Ops 4 problem of introducing new areas for the sake of introducing them. They weren't all that memorable, nor did they serve much of a point. And obviously we can't forget that the Easter egg was getting to round 150. One of the worst Easter eggs ever. However, as a high round gamer, that doesn't bother me too much. Number 6. The Giant from Black Ops 3. I really enjoyed the Giant, as it really did bring a classic from the past into the modern day with the Giant. You know, the snow really does make this map good, you know, considering the fact that Origins predates this map, you know, in terms of the story, really does bring a bit of Origins to the Giant facility. The Primus crew was amazing. I personally prefer them to the Ultimus crew, and it works really well on this map. Getting to high rounds with the Wunderwaffe, granted, wasn't as satisfying as previous games due to how inconsistent the Wunderwaffe was in Black Ops 3, but it was still fun regardless. Realistically, this was a harmless remaster. You know, it introduced the BO3 weapons, which were a lot stronger, had gobblegums. It was still the same map that we grew up loving and knowing and appreciating, but it didn't do much more besides that other than a shitty little mini Easter egg with the Annihilator pistol, of all things, as a reward. We still love the map, you know, it's carried by how goated Der Reese was, but the new additions weren't all that good. Number 5. The Final Right from World War II Zombies. Honestly, an incredible map layout. I love how it contrasts really well with the snowy city, with the labs mixed with obviously the bloody underground area. Like, it contrasts really well, suits the horror vibe that World War II Zombies was going for. I enjoyed most of this map. You know, it's a very beginner-friendly experience. However, the Easter egg was still pretty fun. You had two sides. You had the casual side and, you know, the more hardcore side, both of which rewarded you with the Panzermörder boss fight, which I thought was actually really incredible, and it was one of the first boss fights that I truly did enjoy, as I didn't play the BO3 ones until after World War II. The wonder weapons on this map were also interesting. I love the Tesla wonder weapons. Kind of reminded me of, you know, the Wonderwaffe or something, but, you know, just different. And really, there's not many things I can speak badly of this map, aside from, you know, the World War II systems. But again, as a launch map, this truly was the best that this game had to offer, and it's one of my favorites. Number 4, Die Maschine from Cold War Zombies. The map that brought pretty much everyone back. This map truly was incredible. As a launch map, potentially one of the easiest zombies maps ever, which obviously made it more accessible. You know, you had massive open spaces to train outside, you know, the snowy forest. It brought back Nachtren Toten as a map layout, which obviously we've seen quite a lot of times, but it was very reassuring to see a familiar location in an unfamiliar, you know, geographical site. Obviously, as well, you have the more claustrophobic underground German scientific bunker. You know, I think that worked really, really well. You know, the nice contrast. You had some more beginner-friendly areas, some challenging ones. You had the Die Shockwaves, the 4 elemental wonder weapons, plus the base version, which were all fun to use in their own regard. The Megaton mini-boss is one of the best bosses in Zombies ever. I just love this guy. A very fun, balanced challenge and the perfect foe to fight on the map, in my opinion. Really, the only issues I have with Die Maschine is just the Easter egg and the boss fight. You know, every map in Cold War Zombies, besides Die Maschine, had a really good boss fight, unfortunately. That's really all I can say bad about this map, though. Everything else was really good. Number 3, 9 from Black Ops 4. The perfect starter map on Black Ops 4 was 9. It introduced, you know, it had the enemy spam from Voyage, but with more open map layouts, it really wasn't as big of a problem. You had reliable strats, both training and camping. You had, you know, the Death of Orion, which pretty much was just a scuffed Wonderwaffe, but it was still very fun and powerful in its own regard. You had a pretty interesting Easter egg as far as the Black Ops 4 ones go. However, you're rewarded with one of the most one of the coolest boss fights we've ever seen. You know, a massive gladiatorial arena with not one but 2 zombie elephants and waves of marauders and berserkers, or whatever they're called. Absolutely incredible, you know, in that regard. The map layout also isn't too complicated. It's just a massive circle, technically. You know, you have the above area, the below area with the 4 towers. Honestly, a pretty accessible map to pretty much anyone. It had difficult aspects such as the super sprinters in Black Ops 4, had, you know, the Blightfathers, which were very fun enemies to deal with. Honestly, 9 was just a fantastic map and one of the best that Zombies had to offer. Number 2, Zombies in Spaceland. Really, what can I say about this map that hasn't already been said? It's basically a near perfect launch map. It really is. The Spaceland theme was absolutely phenomenal. We've never seen anything like it before. It was wacky, it was clearly out there, you know, the new storyline that Infinite Warfare was creating. The 4 different wonder weapons were unique, they were fun to use in their own regard, just the little laser pistols. And you could also exchange your tokens or your tickets for, you know, the big bulky cryo freeze gun, which was also interesting. I love that you could ride the parks, you know, many different attractions. You know, basically any attraction you saw at the park, you could use it in one form or another, from, you know, shooting targets on a roller coaster to earn tickets, to sliding down slides to escape from the alien, you know, the alien Goliath looking dude. And speaking of aliens, the literal boss fight on this map was an actual alien. Like, that's so cool. And, you know, the Easter egg wasn't too bad either. I genuinely did enjoy it, even though I'm not an Easter egg guy. It was genuinely just a blast playing this map. And if it was in Black Ops 3, I think it would be everyone's favorite map, if I'm honest. However, the best launch map in all of Call of Duty Zombies, it's my pride and joy, it's Shadows of Evil. Really, what can I say about this map that hasn't already been said? It's literally just on the same tier as Mob, Origins and Horizon Drac, except it's a launch map. Those maps are all DLC, this is a launch map, and to be fair, I think it's better than those four in some aspects. You know, map layout is perfect, I genuinely don't have an issue with it. Transportation, not an issue at all. You know, you've got stamina, you've got the teleporters, you can go anywhere in the map basically instantly. You have the tram, which is useful for the swords. Speaking of the swords, it was the first time we had specialist weapons in Zombies. The Apothicon swords were very fun to use, same with the Apothicon Servant, the most powerful wonder weapon of all time. Introduced the Margwa, which is, in my opinion, one of the best bosses of all time. You know, how he becomes slow at the start, however gradually more fast and aggressive, and undeniably a threat the longer you fight him for. High rounds are not too hard, however they're not too easy either, because you have the Margwas slowing you down, but you have the Civil Protectors that can deal with them. You also have, you know, a pretty decent Easter egg, nothing too special. However, the Easter egg boss fight against the Shadow Man was pretty fun, especially given where you fight him, given that the Pack-a-Punch machine where you fight him is basically in the depths of hell, or so it feels like. It really is a fun fight, especially when you're wall running around. Honestly, Shadows of Evil, a near perfect map, my personal choice for the best Zombies map in history, as well as the best Zombies map on launch. Well, that took a while.